welcome to As It Comes, life from a musician's point of view. I'm Davina. I'm a freelance cellist based in London, whatever that means now, and I'm crawling into the fog of the new year, attempting to get some kind of structure back into my life. At the best of times, getting started in January was often a struggle for freelance musicians. Back in the day, we'd lament the lack of performance work and look ahead in horror at the impending doom of the tax return at the end of January. Which reminds me, I need to get on to that. I can't say it's going to be a very joyous event, especially given the past year. Time to dig out those receipts. I will admit, I used to go back to teaching having completely forgotten who my students were or what they were playing, especially as a lot of them were playing Christmas carols since November in an attempt to distract them from real life. As musicians generally, we're used to this quiet time, but this year we have to come up with different strategies for getting through sad January. So as a result, I'm going to make sure that I have things to structure my day. Over December, I basically did nothing apart from sit on my couch playing The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and it's very tempting to bring that forward into January. But the usual things that I used to do to occupy myself in January's past aren't all possible, like seeing friends. So here are some things I will do instead. I will remember all my students' names. I will remember what they're playing and try to be a good teacher. I'm going to catch up on some content that a lot of my friends are creating, including watching live streams. I watched one the other day with my dinner, and the next day I watched Stephen Isserlis perform at Wigmore Hall while I ate my lunch. I have to say, I'm a huge fan of eating while watching a concert. And finally, I'm going to try and move the limbs of my body at least once a day, most likely in the form of yoga. Last episode, I spoke about small, manageable, and positive decisions. This time, I'm going to direct those towards enjoyable and achievable moments so that, when prompted, I will not only be able to tell you the names of my students, but also what day of the week it is, in an attempt to maintain some concept of linear time. On a more positive note, Lucy Drever is my guest for this episode. We had a chat in December about how she brings music to communities, the importance of music in cross-curricular learning, and surprising oneself on the perception of just what is music education, leading her to become the head of musicianship with the Benedetti Foundation. The work of the Benedetti Foundation has been extremely present throughout the pandemic, offering regular sessions and tutorials for young musicians online with fantastic and inspiring artists. Lucy also offers advice for how to stay motivated and keep your love of music alive during this time, as we're embedded in lockdown here in the UK. Again, for the third time. Here's my conversation with Lucy. My washing machine has just stopped freaking out. It sounded like it was going to take off, like into space earlier. But I think that's stopped now. Good. All right, I'll kick things off officially. So, Lucy Drever, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me remotely from Scotland. Is that right?
Yeah, from Glasgow.
Oh, nice. Well, welcome to beautiful sunny day here in London. So, 2020 has been a funny year for reasons which we don't need to explain. But what's something that you're looking forward to doing in 2021?
Yeah, 2020 has been a year, hasn't it? And I think because of the way that 2020 has been, I think in 2021, I'm most looking forward to the art sector sort of getting back to some form of normal. But I say that as someone who loves to go to gigs and someone who, just loves to see live performance, but also as someone who obviously has so many colleagues and friends and loved ones in this industry who have just had a really hard time. So I think I'm most looking forward to just it all getting back to some form of normal for people.
I can't wait to go to a gig again. Not that I went to many beforehand, but I think because of this deprivation, it's made us really crave that again, hasn't it? You know, how good will it be to go to a performance with your friends and, you know, go to dinner before or afterwards, and just that whole feeling, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think I mean, I've always gone to quite a lot of gigs, but I never realized how much it sort of filled me up as like someone who's in the industry, who's working with music every day, how much I need it for almost energy and just being able to sit in the audience and feel that magic of live art. I'm quite surprised at how much I miss it. But as you say, it's the dinner beforehand, the pub afterwards, the dancing, I'm looking forward to that.
It's the whole collective experience, isn't it? Yeah, just making a night out of it. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm sure we'll be back. I have high hopes. Brilliant answer to 2021, and I think we can only go upwards from here. I think it would be very, very unlucky if we were to go down from 2020. But just to introduce you to people who might not be familiar with who you are and what you do, you're a workshop leader and presenter, and you bring music to lots of different settings outside of the concert hall, including prisons, care homes and hospitals, and working with various ensembles and foundations, including the Benedetti Foundation, which we'll talk about shortly. But what drew you to this line of work as a musician?
So looking back on it, have always been involved in some form of community work. So whether that was at school and you had to do like a certain amount of volunteering hours, and I had the most amazing music teacher who was letting me lead choirs as well. But then when I left school, I actually did 2 years of care work. So I used to go into people's homes and provide the care that meant that they could stay at home. And then it was my singing teacher. I still didn't know what I was going to go on and study. And my singing teacher was like, why don't you just go and study some singing? And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. So came down to London, and just pretty quickly, I just like naturally gravitated towards the learning and participation department at Trinity Laban, where I studied. And I actually did data entry for one of their community projects that was so groundbreaking. It was Animate Orchestra, and the whole preface of it was that any young person that played any instrument, and that includes like garage band on the iPad or beatboxing, anything, could fit into like this orchestra model, but there was no music involved. Everyone was just learning by ear. And because I was doing the data entry, I got to really kind of see the behind the scenes of how community work was set up. And then I got the opportunity to observe an amazing workshop leader, Natasha Lohan. And she worked with this choir called Retired Not Tired. They've got a different name now. But when I had always worked with the older generation before, it was always singing like wartime songs, which actually looking back on it is just really inappropriate, because so many of the older generation now, they like weren't alive in the war, so I don't know why we always kind of gravitate towards that rep. Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. But Natasha did like creative composition, and they would all bring in poems, or they would bring in items that really meant something to them. And then she just had this way of like getting lyrics and movement out of them, and just creating music that was genuinely music that they were creating, not something that somebody was putting onto them.
So it was kind of tailored to their experiences and their life, rather than, you're a vaguely old person, you must be interested in this wartime tune.
Exactly. And like actually valuing the person in that exact moment rather than your idea of them. And I just had never seen somebody work in such a creative way before. And then kind of off and on for the next few years, I was lucky enough to get quite a lot of community experience with Trinity Laban's learning and participation. And one of the heads there was just like, oh, you should go do the trainee music leader scheme at Wigmore Hall. And I was so stubborn, Davina, honestly, so stubborn. And I was like, no, I don't want to be involved in education, because in my view, education was just kind of 52 weeks a year in school doing the same thing every day. And I know that's so short-sighted. Right. But at that time, and being a lot younger, that's what I thought.
Right. So you hadn't quite opened up your view as to what it could be at that point.
Yeah. I very much just thought that education was going to be like ABRSM. Like,
sitting behind the little desk and, can I please have your F major scale?
Exactly. Yeah. Which I really respect, but it didn't kind of light the fire in my belly. And so I was, just really stubborn. And then I did a community project with a lecturer, one of my lecturers, Paul Bartholomew. And it was every Thursday. We'd leave London at like 7 a.m. We wouldn't get back until 11 p.m. And in the day, we would have worked in like 6 schools, primary and secondary. We'd have been to 2 community choirs. And it was just my favorite day of the week. And at that time, I was kind of just doing work to very much pay the bills. And I just loved it. And so I was like, right, I'm going to apply for this trainee music leader scheme at Wigmore. And I applied and I got it. And honestly, that just changed my life. Right. It opened up my eyes to this new world. And I cannot tell you how much that experience changed my life.
So that was the turning point. And so what did that scheme involve exactly?
So for 11 months, I was able to observe and assist and lead on various aspects of their community program. So they do a project called Chamber Tots, which is for 0 to 5s.
Yeah.
They have Music for Life, which is for people living with dementia and their families as well. Music for Thought, which is also for people living with dementia. And hospital schoolwork, and presenting, which I didn't know was a thing, like education presenting. And I got to see so many different aspects. And what was really interesting is I went in, again, there's a bit of a theme here, I'm quite stubborn. I went in with a very like exact view of, I'm going to love that and I'm going to be doing that part of it. But in my head, I was like, I don't particularly like children, so I'm not going to be doing any of the early years stuff. And now the hilarious thing is I'm one of their early years leaders.
Right,
I love it. It's like one of my favorite things to do, just to play with like the most creative people on the planet, the 0 to 5s.
Yeah.
So it kind of just an opportunity to just see their work. And it's a really amazingly creative and thoughtful department.
Mm-hmm. So quite far from the perspective that you had before of of ABRSM and that sort of side of music education, but also just opening your eyes to all the different things that you can do and how it surprises you as well. Yeah, I mean, there have definitely been times in my experience where you go in with a certain attitude thinking, I'm not sure if I'll like that, like as you were saying with the children before. But then it can surprise you. I think it's a certain mindset. Did you feel like your attitudes sort of switched when you were presented with different opportunities like this?
Yeah, completely. And I think the biggest attitude shifting moment was just this realization that in the room, it's not like kind of a hierarchy of music leader and then musician and then participant, but actually it's just a level playing field of these equal voices, each with an equal right to be creative and an equal space to have their voice heard, no matter who the participant or musician or workshop leader is. And that to me felt exciting and it felt quite game changing. And I was just able to see the most amazing workshop leaders go about their workshops doing this and it genuinely being an equal and collaborative experience.
Yeah.
And to this day, like, I think that's why I so miss live in-person workshops, because I just miss that connection, you know?
Yeah. And with the lack of latency, was this quite different from your musical upbringing?
I think in some respects, yes. But I was really lucky with the music department at school. I had the same music teacher actually in Scotland. You have like P1, which is like reception, up to S6. And I had the same music teacher throughout. And he was just so like into everything from Evensong to Pink Floyd to, you know, he had such a diverse range. So from very early on, we were singing a whole range of stuff. And then there was an amazing drama department and I was able to do lots of musical theatre. But I guess in the sense of doing exams and doing like grades and stuff, it was quite traditional. I don't think I ever did that much composition, or if it was composition, it was like on Sibelius and I was just awful at it.
Yeah, that was my experience of composition as well, just randomly punching in keys and yeah. Because it felt, and I'm not sure if you felt the same, but it felt very much like there was a right and there was a wrong answer. Yeah, sometimes, in some aspects of my musical education at least, and there'd be certain rules that perhaps I hadn't grasped and I thought, oh, I'm not quite adhering to that. Is it still valid? But yeah, it's being able to showcase to young musicians that there's not necessarily a right or a wrong. And as you were saying before, that everyone's voice is valid, whether or not it's traditional. But then it does sound like, at least you had that variation from your music teacher, as you mentioned before, doing Evensong, Pink Floyd. The only Pink Floyd lyric that comes to mind right now, which is weirdly not super appropriate, is "We don't need no education." Actually.
Yeah.
I think that's really great to hear about that. So moving on to your role at the Benedetti Foundation, where you head up the musicianship program. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is right. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It feels weird for you to say that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Benedetti Foundation, I feel like it's been quite omnipresent throughout 2020. I see a lot of it on social media. I was seeing it, shortly before the lockdown, where there were, you'd see pictures of Nicky Benedetti surrounded by a billion little violinists in halls around the country. So the foundation provides transformative orchestra-based workshops for young people and teachers, advocating quality arts and cultural education in schools and at home, most pertinently at home. So tell me about your role as head of musicianship. So you flinched a little bit when I mentioned that. Did it come as a bit of a surprise to you to get that role?
Yeah, it did, because I'm absolutely not an instrumentalist, and apart from at school, I've never played in an orchestra. But I think it kind of sums up the Benedetti Foundation ethos, that they get somebody like me involved, who's very much community-based, who's very much coming from a place of, if I listen to a piece of Mozart or Haydn, I'm not actually thinking about the musical ingredients. I'm actually thinking about, how does that make you feel, and what's the story, and what can you see in your imagination, and how does that make you want to play, and how does that make you want to connect with your audience. And Laura, the director of the Benedetti Foundation, and Nikki, they are just so strong in their advocacy that music education is so much broader than it has been. And they really think that every child deserves not only to do these exams and of course to learn like the technical foundations, but that they kind of join the dots earlier on, and that, in our young people, imagination comes so naturally to them, and it's about keeping that kind of special magic to bring to your playing, rather than forgetting about all of that, focusing on the technical aspect of it, and then somehow getting that back when you're like 25 standing on stage in front of an audience.
It's a little bit like what we were saying before with composition, and not really knowing, should I adhere to the rules or this or that. But yeah, as you mentioned, children have such an incredible imagination that comes naturally to them. And you do notice it with some people, they're scared to say exactly how a piece of music makes them feel, because they're scared it's the wrong answer. I've definitely had this in my experience with teaching private cello students. And so there's this piece in grade 5 and it's called Robots March, and it ends with a very violent sforzando at the end. And I just asked the student, what do you think happens to the robots at the end? And he couldn't answer. I think he'd just been completely paralyzed by this, these parameters of like what we must say and what we mustn't say. It was really, really difficult to get an answer out of him. But then eventually he just had an outburst and he said, "The robots die!" And I was like, I celebrated at that point, because he actually said something, and made me I just really wanted to highlight with him that there is no right or wrong answer. And that is a very valid and accurate description of this piece. But yeah, like how do you go about just keeping those minds open, and especially in parts of society where that's not necessarily encouraged?
I think that's an excellent question. And I do think that's one of the reasons it's so powerful to have somebody like Nikki really advocating for that openness, and that openness to learn, and that openness to imagine. Because, like, let's not beat about the bush. She's like the top of her game. She's marvelous, wonderful. But, before you said earlier, like these photos of her surrounded by all these children, and that's exactly what these weekends are. And she's so I always feel really bad for her. Her schedule is insane on these weekends, and she's always there with lots of energy and lots of ideas. But the main thing is like, mistakes are cool, and she's always saying that. She's like, you've got to just stay open. You've got to stay open to the story. So I think having someone like her who is breaking quite traditional boundaries that quite a lot of us have been brought up in terms of music, is really powerful. I think as well, like, we have to listen more to classroom teachers. I just think teachers are like the most, like, they have fountains of knowledge that as musicians working with young people, we could all really gain from. And thinking about what they need in terms of what songs and what kind of like creative music making in the classroom that isn't just a kind of abstract music lesson, but is linked to the topic that they're studying. Or it's just, I don't know, I think that we have to like focus less on kind of making a million Nikki Benedettis, but actually we just have to make like a million really confident young people who can walk into a room and say their name and know that they deserve that job opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree 100%, because it's not the aim of every music teacher to create more mini little prodigies, but it's to create people who can appreciate music, art, but also how that informs the other skills in their life as well. And I think, like as you mentioned before, music being a form of storytelling, and how music can be used to link and create a sort of cross-curricular sort of scheme where, you know, music is a physical activity, it's a science, it's maths as well, it's all these different things. So not just going through the mechanics. Yeah.
I was working with a teacher once who her class were having difficulty learning their 3 times table, so we literally just got out a drum and put a beat underneath it. And just kind of said the 3 times table to this beat. And then the class, they just then were able to recite it, and they were able to do the answers. And, you know, that is music.
And that's great. What an amazing tool as well. And you know what? That's probably something that they'll never forget, because it'll be, if you have something catchy enough, it'll just stay in your brain forever. They'll be like 40 years old, and then it'll come back and, I remember my 3 times tables.
Yeah. But you know, like, maybe you're the same, but I can still remember the French songs that we learned at school in French to like learn certain phrases. And I should have much better French. And I don't, apart from the songs.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Next time you go to France, and you can sing your requests.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think about some of the songs that we learnt in primary school back in New Zealand, where I'm from, and we learn a lot of, you know, snippets of the Maori language through song. And it's incredible how it just takes you back. And when you learn anything at primary school age, it just really, really sticks with you. But what I love about those sorts of things is that you can mention any of these songs to any Kiwi from a certain generation anywhere around the world. And there's this kind of like call and response thing. It's like, yes. Yeah, really special. Yeah.
That's so funny you said that, because I'm sometimes, you know, when you like see people from school and like you might, you know, just like chatting, having dinner, and then you do all just like break out into the songs that you used to sing, like surrounded by the primary school teacher, you know. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. It's the great unifier, isn't it? So what's been a highlight for you in 2020 working with the foundation?
Definitely 100% the virtual sessions in May. And that's for various reasons. That is my main highlight. I think, you know, as musicians, we can all remember that week in March that just our diaries got completely cleared, and it all just looked a bit bleak and a bit scary.
Yep.
And then Nikki and Laura, I've talked about stubbornness quite a lot, but they were so stubborn in the fact that this was, and I mean stubborn in the best way, but they were like, this is going to happen. We're going to be really positive. We're going to be really optimistic, and we're going to put it online. So for 3 weeks, we were leading workshops with young people and people over 18 and like instrumentalists, non-instrumentalists, music specialists, non-music specialists, all over the world. And they really, created this amazing community that just came together at such a difficult time to make music together and to learn and to imagine. And it really kind of gave me confidence for the rest of the year. And not just because it meant that I got to like master how Zoom worked and Instagram Live. Nikki made me get an Instagram, and just like Facebook Live, not just because of the practical sides, but just in the value of it. And with the feedback that we were getting, it was just so obvious how important it was. And so, that's definitely been the highlight.
And I imagine it's so important for not just the participants, but for you as well, having something to look forward to, having something in the diary, having a sense of purpose. And so that you can get to, well, here we are now in December 2020 and have things to look forward to in 2021. Such a valuable, very valuable experience. So I've got one more question regarding that. What piece of advice would you give to young music makers now to stay motivated during these various stages of lockdown and restrictions?
Excellent question. The main piece of advice, and I think this year has probably taught us all this, whether you're a young person or not, is just to not put additional pressure on yourself. If you want to practice, great. If today's not your day, absolutely fantastic. But there are other ways of being musical. And just try to do something musical every day, whether that's playing your instrument, whether that's listening to a piece of music that you've never listened to before, whether that's listening to a piece of music that you possibly played last year and haven't listened to since, or if you know that you're going to be playing a piece next year, listen to that. One of the best things I think about lockdown has been that so many of the orchestras and ensembles and opera companies have been streaming their performances. Watch them, get inspired, listen to some music, see people performing. But probably the main thing is just don't put too much pressure on yourself,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because if you're practicing because you feel like you have to and your heart's not really in it, you're probably not going to have a very good practice session, are you? Yeah. No, that's really good advice. It's just keeping the music alive, even in this very desperate year. Just remembering why you like music. I've definitely found that. There have been times where I listen to a piece of music and initially I think, oh, this is a bit sad. I was meant to play this later this year. But then also I feel grateful as well, because sometimes I listen to a piece of music and I think, oh, I played this last year. Oh, I'm lucky I got to play it last year. At least you have that. At least you have the things that you've done before to feel grateful for. And they'll be back. I'm adamant.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
I thought we'd move on now. So you may or may not know, in my podcast, I have a segment called the Wildcard Question Round. And this is your chance to choose what I ask you next based on 3 topics that I present you.
Amazing.
Okay, so your topics are new skills, favourite pastimes, and, because this is me, food.
Oh, yeah, no, it has to be food.
Oh, great. Excellent. You've made my day. So, I love this. I'm very passionate about food. I think a lot of listeners are quite aware of that now. I talk about food a lot. I think about food a lot as well. So my question to you, 2 questions actually. What did you last eat? And what will you eat next?
Oh, honestly, I could talk about this all day. So actually, it's been a very exciting morning food-wise.
Oh, go on.
So I've just moved to Glasgow. I moved in the middle of the pandemic. I've been in London for about 12 years. So we're just kind of trying to get to know places, but in lockdown. And there's this bakery called Deanston Bakery. And they do these filled rolls, but a cinnamon roll. Ooh. But filled, they do a savory version. And I just had a mushroom and truffle oil roll thing. And it was heaven. Stop. Oh, and cheddar as well.
Oh, it's got to have cheese, doesn't it? Yeah, you got to have a bit of cheese in there. That's like basically the only reason why I'm not vegan is because I love cheese so much. But yeah, that sounds so delicious and savory. I've definitely got more of a savory tooth. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, me too.
Yeah. So that was breakfast. That's quite a decadent breakfast for you.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. Well, I've Zoom life. I've kind of got Zooms for the next few hours now. So yeah, it's probably just going to be a bit of a salad after, and then a big hearty main evening meal.
Oh yeah, and what will that be?
So my partner makes these vegetarian sausage rolls.
Yeah. Oh, good.
With like a tapenade in it, and it's heaven.
Tapenade, is that like olive mushed up or something?
Yeah. It's so it's like olives and peppers and some of the what's it called? That red paste. Honestly, it's amazing.
Red paste. Okay. I feel like I should know that, but I don't. That's weird. Anyway. I'll look it up later.
Yeah. It's proper great. And real like comforting, because it's quite cold.
Yeah, how cold is it in Glasgow today?
Probably if you've lived here for a while, like not that cold, but I'm freezing.
Oh, okay. You know what? I'm just thinking it's early December. This is the first time in like 2 years that I've not been in Glasgow at this time of year, because I'm usually there for just coincidence, really. I always seem to have things at this time of year up in Glasgow, and I love it. There's just so many nice places to eat there. I mean, obviously, I'm always eating out in Glasgow because I don't live there, so I have to scope out restaurants and stuff. But the amount of like delicious sourdough pizzas I've had, or like nice coffee, it just, in a way, it sort of reminds me of being back somewhere like, back home. Doesn't necessarily feel like I'm in the UK still. I love it.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for telling me about your day in food. It's given me like new goals.
Oh, thank you for asking. I could honestly talk about food.
I'm really intrigued by that mushroom, truffle oil, cheddar situation.
Next time you're up here, head to Deanston Bakery. Honestly, change your life.
Okay. Yeah. I will do. Great. Thank you so much for your insights on your work as head of musicianship with the Benedetti Foundation. It's been really fascinating talking to you. And also, thanks for telling me about your day in food. So where can people find out more about you and your work?
So I have a website, just Lucy Drever, DREVER.com. And I'm on Twitter, Lucy_Drever. And I'm also on Instagram at the same handle, Lucy_Drever. And
right.
Instagram is mostly like plants and Glasgow, but Twitter's all the work stuff. Yeah.
Oh, plants. Oh, that's another thing we could talk about. I'm currently propagating 1 million spider plants because I've got a spider plant that's shooting off all these little babies. So I've got about 8 in the flat. They're brilliant. Here's one. I'll probably cut this out. But look, so robust and so healthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to have plants. They make your home, don't they?
Yeah, I've really gotten into it during lockdown. They've been a lifesaver.
Yeah. Oh, I can see one behind you, actually. What is that?
Yeah. So this is a lipstick plant.
A lipstick?
Yeah. And I've actually got and I've got my spider plant next to it as well.
Oh, you do? Oh, beautiful. No,
yeah.
It's really, really nice feature. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks once again for being on the podcast, Lucy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers.
So much.
Hope you enjoyed my chat with Lucy. Remember to check out the show notes for details on Lucy's work, as well as the Benedetti Foundation, which will continue to be a force throughout 2021. I've just had a look on their website, and you can buy books with tips for string players and string teachers, like advice on practice routines, how to stay inspired, how to teach shifting. I need these books in my life. There are also tons of inspirational videos and sessions that students can sign up for with fantastic tutors. No greater time than the present to check this out, especially if you're at home looking for some teaching inspiration or looking for something that will help out a young musician that you know. That's it for today. Special thanks to Roz Nagy for my logo and Daniel Elms for my jingle. Massive thanks to Lucy Drever for being my inspirational guest, and special thanks to Rebecca Driver Media Relations for their help this episode. What's keeping you busy these days? Get in touch at asitcomespodcast@gmail.com or on the website asitcomes.com, where you'll also find all previous episodes and transcripts of the podcast. You can also get in touch with me via Instagram and Facebook, where I highly recommend you give me a follow and a like at asitcomespod. Remember to rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you to those who've already done so. And thanks for continuing to spread the word. Chat to you soon and take good care. Bye.